Welcome to the Conditional Release Program, a podcast that delves into the netherworld of cults, crims and con artists. We don't like these people in the shows, and we believe the best way to expose them is to hold them up to a harsh light, point our index fingers in their general direction and mock them mercilessly, take them down a peg or two until they cease to exist in any other form than the shit on our shoes. I'm Jack the Insider, otherwise known as Peter Hoisted for tax purposes. And look, we're going to have to do a clip show or something because it turns out not much happened this week. A Glebe woman lost her cat at one point, but that was about it. So, Joel, without further ado, can you cut up some of the old shit and flip that out?
What? Are you smoking bath salts again? Jack, a million things happened this week. Trump went nuts, incited a coup, and the Capitol was stormed by badly dressed right-wing lunatics. 5 fucking people died. Like, the fucking president of the United States of America was trying to get a whole bunch of Nazis and 4chan posters to stage an overthrow of the government, and currently, likely, stands screaming at furniture in the West Wing because he can't tweet anymore. This is a lunatic going fully psychotic with a nuclear football flung behind the couch, and fuck me, I hope the nuclear footy does not have a Twitter account because he'll be hassling it for the password, trying to sneak out a few posts on it, getting fucking banned again. Don't get the nuclear football banned on Twitter, Trump.
Look, sure, but I'm talking besides that. Besides the long-tormented political death of Donald J. Trump, besides that, by the way, I maintain the nuclear football they give the Trumpster now is the inside of a 1998 Sunbeam microwave, where they just pull the front off and throw the electrics in an overnight bag and give it to him like that.
Formidable.
There's your football, Donnie, and knock yourself out with it. But I was out looking for the missing Glebe cat, civic duty and all. Made several searches in some very nice pubs in Balmain and watched Donald Trump's world implode before my very eyes. So obviously, it was a very fine day. And I maintain that a lot of journos have had their noses pressed up against the glass for so long, they can't quantify the significance of what is actually going on. But that's a story for our deeper dive and why I took the day off, quite frankly. And I make no apologies for it. And while I was out getting elephants, Joe was hard at work observing and then annotating the news where it turned out lots and lots of things happened. And that's why he'll be presenting the Conditional Release Program's weekly news. Joel.
Let's go back to a bit of the local craziness with a Perth hotel quarantine escapade update. It's Jenny Dubios? What?
Jenny Dubious. They should have picked her up in the births, deaths and marriages department. Weird names equals state surveillance as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I could not agree more, Jack. Dubious as fuck and some of the craziest eyes I have ever seen. Our mate Jenny finally had charges laid on her for skipping hotel quarantine in Perth. For those that don't know her, she's the one that came back from Spain, a place that is crawling in coronavirus, and came back only to skip hotel quarantine for various reasons, including the fact the curtains in the hotel gave her hay fever, the antihistamines made her sick, and she's also completely pilled and completely deranged.
She seemed like quite a few marbles have been dislodged when I saw her, Joel.
Yes, yeah, she really has got a screw loose. But she got bail, and to be honest, I thought that was pretty lenient of the magistrate to give her bail. Yeah. But sadly, like everything in the dubious life, it hasn't turned out very well for her in the end because she gave a fake address for her bail. And I guess she just thought the cops wouldn't check up on her or something, but they did. So she gave another address, another fake address. The person that she said, they hadn't talked to her in 6 months. You can't make this shit up. It's fucking hilarious. So in response, the magistrate sent her to the maximum security Maluka women's prison instead of the usual remand centre in Bandia. So unfortunately, what's probably happened there is she's gone in there and basically just red-pilled the prison population, and now the entire fucking jail will be talking about how Hillary Clinton eats babies and there's children under the tunnels. And
look, it could happen, of course, but the reality is she's probably just lying on her concrete bed with her paper blankets.
Yes, probably. Who knows? Who knows?
Wouldn't be very nice in there prior to your induction.
Yes.
So I think she'll be doing it fairly tough. She could end up running the joint, of course, as you say, Joel, but dragging a few in with the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, look, she's pretty compelling in that sort of insane kind of way, but she's got plenty of time to do it because she's up for 12 months and or a $50,000 fine. And I reckon her sentence is going to be veering very close to the maximum there. After these shenanigans.
I think most people would consider the full 12 would be appropriate in this case. She has a lawyer, Joel. She has a lawyer who's a bit of a local. He's an Australian connection.
Serene Tafaha, who practices in Victoria, but she's trying to establish herself as this sort of lawyer of choice for soft sits and COVID deniers and general sort of, right-wing fringe lunatics.
Niche market, it's a niche market. Tremendous Australian
Plenty
connection.
of business.
Yes, fills my heart with pride.
Yeah, I reckon she's probably doing this one on the cheap for exposure, but expect her name to pop up more and more and making these ridiculous claims of how people are corporations and the laws are invalid, even though she practices. And I reckon basically the next headline for her...
Sworn an oath to uphold them.
Yes, exactly. And to basically take the piss out of them until the Victorian Law Society decides that they need to have a bit of a chat. So it will be interesting to see how this rising star of the lunatic fringe goes in the future, but I think her future is about as bright as an extinguished match.
Oh, dear. And last week we did a story on the pilled pharmacist, and he's been pulled up as well and doing a bit of stir, Joel.
Oh, bless. Yeah. So the guy that took the Moderna vaccine out of the fridge to stop them from working, which really pissed me off. The guy's pilled as fuck. We kind of knew that, but he's like proper Hillary Clinton eats babies with aliens in Area 51 level cooked.
And basically our pharmacist Stephen Brandenburg had good intentions, but was working on bad intel. He left the vials out of the fridge because he thought the vaccine was going to alter the DNA of every recipient. 1950s horror movie style with Boris Karloff and all the gang. He was just trying to save the people from turning into reptiles or something.
And this might sound a bit silly, but this is the kind of shit that Pete Evans and all the other health grifters have been pumping out on social media for ages. And this is what happens when con men have a motive to fuck with your head. You turn these things into reality.
It's nice to know he had good intentions. Very sad to see people are getting this pilled by ridiculous claims about the vaccine. Hopefully most pharmacists, and of course we know they are smarter than this rube. Oh, yeah, look, you'd have to say so.
Hope so.
Yes, normally men and women of science, but not this character.
No,
and speaking of rubes, they don't go rubier than Melissa Carone. And, well, look, she's in a spot of bother just quietly, isn't she, Joe?
Yeah, well, there isn't really much quiet about Rudy's Michigan circus hearing star witness and at this point now creepy sort of conservative sex symbol Melissa Carone because she's back in the news after Dominion Voting Systems Incorporated sent her a love letter basically telling her they plan to sue her for defamation. And in her trademark style of blindly confident defiance, she declared that Dominion was not about to tell her what to do and basically goaded them into, suing her. So this makes Carone far braver than both Fox News and the insane right-wing conspiracy news network Newsmax, as when they received a legal threat from Dominion, they backpedaled on their claims, apologising for them, and being very careful not to make them again. Because it's really funny how a defamatory comment really just suddenly changes tone when a legal letter comes into play. Ooh,
shit just got real.
Oh yeah, really real. When the big guns come out. See, Carone is not the only one to get a love letter from Dominion. No. As today in the news, apparently Dominion are also planning to sue Sidney Powell for at least $1.3 billion.
And Sydney's not the only one getting sued by Dominion machines in a growing field. Joel, Lynn Wood has been hit up for a cheeky $1.3 billion as well. Ouch. Good. Well, if you're a company whose entire reason for being is making voting machines and clowns from Trump down keep saying you've been in the thrall of dead Hugo Chavez, you might have a reasonable claim for damages.
Absolutely. I mean, Carone's last public appearance, according to what I can find, was when she attended a rally wearing a jumper with her own face on it, asking, and some would say pleading, for reporters to interview her. Always the American way, never let a good crisis get away.
Just a shy retiring type, yes.
It's very adorable. It's a weird video. And this was the moment that a lot of people noticed that Carone actually has giant breasts. And the usual speculation about a sex tape started because boys will be boys and men are creeps. It's really classy stuff. Don't read the comments. It gets really gross. Lots of thirst traps in there.
Never
really needless.
Read the comments. Yes, go on.
Yeah.
Yes, go on,
it's a missive for all, but fuck me, it's really gross. Anyway, whatever. She might need one, though, because it turns out she was actually employed to clean up the voting machines, basically wiping them down between uses for minimum wage. So I have a feeling the inevitable 6 or 7 figure settlement is going to need a little more than a wipe down to pay off. Now, this sex tape might end up being the golden parachute she needs.
Yeah, she's going to need something because there is a possibility of claim and counterclaim. She's threatening as well, but
Rudy's not going to fucking pay it.
Well, she can really only lawyer up with even low rent nutters like Lynn Wood, and maybe he'll work pro bono, but it's not guaranteed. So she's in quite a lot of stuff. In other news, we have to look at what the Donald's been up to on the blower. Trump makes a habit of ringing up state officials and threatening them, and it was only a matter of time before he started on the Georgians. In fact, I believe the phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and in what is one hell of an irony when you think about it, his counsel, Ryan Germany. And the call was one of many made by the White House to Atlanta, and fairly unpleasant ones from all reports. So we'll see where that flies in terms of a Senate conviction or post-presidential charges of incitement, sedition or treason. I'm not sure if that's the way it will go, but really I do have to wonder, with a treason conviction, do they go the lethal injection or go old school with a firing squad? Something for the Trumps to think about, no doubt. It would have crossed Junior's mind, surely. He's an outdoorsman, loves his hunting, can't stand anyone who doesn't, which is a fairly serious personality trait. He'd be up for a firing squad, I reckon. I reckon he'd probably insist on it. But, Joel, what happened during the hour-long call of Trump's to hell with his counsel, septuagenarian Cleta Mitchell and Raffensperger and young Germany?
Well, the week that was kicked off with this one, which was the hour-long telephone call between Donald Trump and Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who's been in the news a million times because of all the fucking ridiculousness going on. Do you remember when this phone call was this huge deal? Like, we were all like going completely bananas about it. That wasn't even a week ago. That was January the 4th. It's just incredible.
I believe it was there were a number of calls made by the White House to Georgia at various levels, trying to stand over officials, and then finally this got
to hear them.
Yeah, this is part of an action that's actually been undertaken by Trump, and so it was part of their legal requirements as a result of this action that they had to have a phone call. And so the Donald, it went for just over an hour, and the Donald spoke for about 55 minutes, just talking straight over the top of people.
Yeah, the guy's just monologuing.
Threatening Raffensperger and Germany with having committed felonies.
All sorts of shit, and it's ridiculous because, like, the thing that I found astonishing is the fact that this huge event just became nothing because the ridiculous events that happened to follow the casual coup d'etat and also just like the Georgia Senate races. I mean, we had this massive explosion of this like scandal and then nothing, but essentially what's happened here is, as you say, over the course of an hour, most of which Trump just spoke like a freight train of bullshit, was telling, or at least asking, but quite like telling him to commit electoral fraud. Like the phone call was worth a listen. The thing that I really enjoyed was in the insane list of baseless claims that Trump was reading out, I noticed there were things that came from 4chan. There were 4chan ops that people were doing where they were cross-referencing birthdays and things.
I listened to it, and he went right out there. He actually went full Q at one point there. And,
totally.
And it was very, very disturbing.
It was madness.
And it's just sort of crazy stuff. Now, I don't believe that call on its own, because of its legal nature, it was basically a requirement of both parties to sit down and parley. And I don't believe it will actually lead to charges, but there are other instances where Trump has clearly intimidated, sought to obstruct justice in effect, in regard to various electoral officials in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and possibly even Arizona, but I haven't heard those things. So it's all part of, if officialdom, if the Congress wants to pursue this, and if the Justice Departments in the United States wants to pursue this, then that all of this stuff, including that conversation that we've been talking about with Raffensperger and Germany, will form part of evidence against him. Yeah.
It's hard to imagine this isn't, wildly illegal, but it's a matter of whether it's prosecuted or not. I mean, like, essentially, this whole thing, it was an hour-long phone call that made us all absolutely question our own reality and sanity. And then it turned out that there were bigger fish to fry. So, yeah, okay, maybe he broke the law. He's probably not going to get done for it. But essentially, it's just last week's news. It's a skid mark in the undies in last week's laundry basket. And now we're moving on to the next coup d'etat. Fuck, who knows what's next? Is he going to do that weird thing where he's meant to like invoke some sort of martial law? Honestly, how this is a small news story is just beyond me. The Overton window has shifted to the point where this is not a big deal.
It's the only unpredictable element of this. Unpredictable, I should say, is that what the Trumpsters going to do, and that's probably why. And my understanding is that Pence is saying any more, and I go 25th Amendment.
Jesus, and he fucking should.
Any more of this, and it's 25th Amendment time, and I think they might be able to roll him that way. I don't think there's time for impeachment and that process. Although I did see tweets from various Congress people, a couple of Congress women actually, Democrat Congress women, who was indicating that he could still be convicted. After Biden's inauguration, so
that
in weeks to come.
Sense.
So that could happen too. But
I can see that.
But the biggest concern is, what's going to happen over the next 10 days.
Yes, there's going to be a lot going on. God, next week's episode will be 3 fucking hours. All right.
Well, let's have a look. Yeah, let's have a look at some of his hangers-on. What's the go with Josh Hawley, junior senator from Missouri? Should we care about him?
Look, at this point, I'm going to say maybe.
Well, he's one of the crypto-fascists in the US that we should keep an eye on.
Yeah, well, see, Hawley's plans to become the next Donald Trump have taken a massive dive this week because he was all geared up for it. He was going to be the new pilled president. He was going to be strongly backing all these baseless claims of election fraud, fully intending to dispute the Electoral College certifications in his little bloody Senate way. But it's turned out pretty shit for old Senator Josh because... Since then, a bunch of neckbeard Nazis and fucking Vikings decided to storm Capitol Hill and do selfies in the chamber, and this kind of shit is now on the nose, which he didn't seem to see coming. He lost his book deal with Simon & Schuster, which I would imagine was a pretty clever and intuitive preempting distancing from someone who was clearly going to go badly. The book sounded shit. The tyranny of big tech?
Great shame to the history of English literature that we've been denied this. I noticed that two Kansas state, the two big papers in Kansas State, his home state, have also said, you should go, champion. Which is pretty telling. The two big local rags in his home state have said, get the fuck out.
He didn't read the room. He did not read the room at all. Like, his backers are distancing themselves from him to a point where it's actually, like, hilarious and saying that helping him get the Senate spot was a mistake. That's bad. You don't want that. That's sad. And Mitt Romney had a go at him pretty brutally. And generally, I think his 2024 ambitions have really gone down. You wouldn't want to invest it in this stock. It's taking a nosedive. See, last week, I was genuinely concerned about this guy's trajectory. He looked like this kind of, like, invincible, good-looking young Republican who was doing all the same crazy shit that Trump does, except better, smarter, and less obnoxious. Like, it looked like he was going to be a complete freight train, but it looks like him and the Trump playbook are all but dead. Thank Christ for that.
Yeah, well, look, Joel, when we talk about self-delusion, we can't really go further than the latest from the Republican Party Central Committee. No. The chair of the Central Committee of Nye County, that's NYE County, Nevada. The absolute certainty from the chairman of the Republican Central Committee of Nye County that Trump will be president, inaugurated, in fact, on January 20.
I could not have written this but better myself. Like, seriously, as someone who has looked at all the pilled shit, has looked at all this stuff like a zombie, been doom scrolling for days as well, I could not have written such a succinct list of things.
Yeah, he's listed, he's sent a memo out to the deeply troubled. And he's come up with all sorts of things. The emergency broadcast system will be kicked in because under federal law, the president must be allowed to send messages to the public. That's some soft shit right there. But anyway,
it is. It really is. That's embarrassing because he can. He's got a fucking podium with his name on it.
He can go and talk to the media anytime he likes. He can go and give Fox News a call. He can go and give any network a call. They'll gladly take him and have a chat to him.
But I want to be on Twitter.
But look, there are a good 8 recommendations, bits of advice from from the
this
chairman of the
genius.
Central Committee, from this absolute fucking genius, who says, number 7, he says, expect Trump to be inaugurated on Jan 20th. Exclamation mark. It's on.
Yep.
It's going to happen.
Yep. It's going to happen.
And
this is from the Republican Central Committee in Nye County, Nevada. Official word.
Nye County, Nevada, by the way, would the Republican Party, financial or sort of basically registered Republican voters are there less than probably 1,000 or 2,000, and so this is a view of a fucking desert rat hillbilly.
Yes.
Who's basically telling anyone who cares to listen that Trump will be not inaugurated, re-inaugurated on January 20th, which is it's a huge prediction. And it seems some of our friends in the gambling or the gaming community have been noticing these sorts of things.
And as if you wouldn't.
Yeah, look, haven't we?
It's inside word.
Absolutely. So we've been watching and reporting on this for some weeks. The one that I particularly am fond of is the local boys, some of the Australian punters of the Betfair punters fraud or Trump fraud exposed.
Yep, that's a mouthful. It's all in caps, mind you.
It's all in caps and just shouting at people, just saying, look, come and join us. How have they been handling these difficult times, Joel?
Look, surprisingly well, actually, because there's fuckheads like the central chairman of bloody Nye County who are keeping these people completely pilled, and they are completely convinced that their bets are coming in. Not only are they completely convinced, but one of the guys on the Telegram, which I totally shouldn't be on, just put down at 5:30 p.m. today on the 10th of January, $1,000 at 90 to 1.
90 to 1.
Because the Betfair odds now is that they've got the betting market for when Trump will leave the White House. That's the one market that seems to be left for them to bet on.
Yes.
And they're still fucking betting on it.
So what did he have a bet on? 1,000 at 90 to 1. What would happen?
For Trump to leave the White House in 2025, which means he has another term and he finishes it.
It's a bold move, isn't it? So he was 130 to 1 to be inaugurated on January 20, and that was the rumor that went like an earthquake through the Betfair Punters Fraud Exposed Facebook group, and some of them took it very hard because they'd backed the Trumpster who's paying $1.40, and that seems silly now.
A few of them got some really shitty odds. But look, they're all in on it. I think they're going to be okay because half of them are making a shitload of money on Bitcoin. So I'm not feeling too sorry for it at the moment. But honestly, these people, as I said, someone an hour and a half ago just put down $1,000. I mean, that's the level of delusion. And they're being backed by people like Nye County.
He could win at that level. He'd win $90,000, an $89,000 net gain. So look, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Well,
he's in for a bit of a rough trot, isn't he? You've got to say, as each day passes by, it's going to look less likely that he's in for his grand. But you never know. He might still be holding his ticket in his hand feverishly in January. In January 2025, saying it could still happen. It could still happen.
100%. There's no question. This is absolutely going to happen. And look, it's sad. It is sad. I look through this and I see these people saying they bet their entire life savings, and I do feel sorry for them. But I also kind of don't. You're kind of what's wrong with the world.
Yeah, and some of them took money out that was basically designed for more sensible uses. and they're in a bit of strife. Some of these people.
Some of them have just said...
But I'm like you. I haven't really got to the point where I want to, or if someone passed the hat around, I'd reach into my pocket,
Well, they can go and Bitcoin themselves.
Not even a gold coin donation, I'm afraid. And
someone just put $100 down?
Congratulations. You may well be the biggest dickheads on the planet right now.
It's just incredible.
And that's not a bad effort. It's not a bad effort to pull that off.
We will be keeping you updated on this because this is fascinating and it's going to unfold over, I'd say, probably a good month, maybe another 6 weeks before these people all just give up.
I'm especially looking forward to Inauguration Day when it comes to Betfair.
This is going to be a regular piece.
Trump fraud exposed. Yes, we're going to be looking at them as we go. And this leads us in, Joel, to a deeper dive on Insurrection Day. It was a huge day and it just went nuts. Tell me what
Yes,
happened,
it
how it got started. Let me know.
What didn't happen? There was a fucking coup attempt. Realistically, what happened was a lot of really good social media traffic happened, which was really perfect timing. So they went in, they committed federal crimes in order to get really awesome selfies, and then they uploaded their only copy to, say, Twitter or Facebook, and then their accounts were banned. So that's much ado. And they put it on Parler, but 3 people saw it, and I think they're going into a deep depression. Maybe I did make a mistake.
And a lot of journalists. But, they did make quite a mess, and they were parading around the place
they were very bad guests.
Fashion.
Very bad guests.
There were bombs.
There were bombs. There were pipe bombs. Pipe bombs that we're not talking about too much. We kind of glaze over the pipe bombs a bit.
And they're two separate instances, and 2 separate offenders being sought from what I'm reading.
Yep.
So we are talking about serious terrorist type offences in that case.
And if you're one of the kind of people who like to say that gun law is this and gun law is that, here's one for the pro-gun law tribe. Washington isn't an open carry state. You can't carry guns around like you can in half of these United States. And that's like, these people were unarmed for the most part because they were legally obliged to be unarmed for the most part. So we are looking at a situation here where people whinge and moan about how gun laws don't do anything and they don't stop people from doing anything. Mate, they stopped a lot. They stopped a lot in this situation. And
that sort of outcome's unimaginable. I believe at the same time, a number of these people were carrying concealed weapons, not necessarily firearms, clubs,
there's a few
batons,
pictures with close-ups,
that sort of thing. And
no, there's a few pistol bumps in certain places, and these are the sort of things where, they weren't brandished, they weren't used.
We have a DC Capitol officer deceased, and that ramps everything up. As soon as police start being, police are murdered in the course of their duties. Yeah,
the cops are your mates until you kill one of them. Yeah, that's not.
And it does, of course, beg the question: what would have happened if a BLM rally of that nature pulled that same sort of stunt?
Yeah, and to be honest, that's the kind of thing. If you want to know about that, go on Twitter, because they are going on and on and on about how if that was this, that, the other thing, if it wasn't a bunch of whites. But at the end of the day, it's not a complex conversation. If that was BLM, there would have been a lot more zip tie arrests. Yeah. A lot more. No question. And look, let's face it, the top cop resigned. The Capitol Hill police boss resigned as a result of this.
Yeah, and that's going to be looked at long and hard. What I do know is that they'd received very little intelligence, in fact, no intelligence that Antifa were going to be involved. And that was perhaps maybe one explanation as to why they thought it wasn't going to be so bad.
Because, the Trump guys could do no harm, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the absurdity of it. But I'm told the intel was pretty good and that Antifa did stay away.
Yes, they did. But of course, if you had a Parler account, you knew that they were planning to go there, cause shit, and rush the fucking Capitol. Everyone knew it except for the cops. It's like, do you guys not internet? Like, where did you get your intel from? The fucking newspaper? Like, what are you doing? You asleep? Like, one of the things I heard, which was quite startling, is that off-duty cops and military were flashing their IDs to get past cops, and it worked. It worked because they went, yep, comrade, head right in.
Yeah, look, it's probably just worthwhile just explaining how policing works in the United States to our Australian listeners. So what you have is state police, right? And sometimes you have city police as well. What you also have is county sheriffs.
The elected ones.
Yeah, they're elected, and they in turn basically employ their own officers. It can certainly work like that, particularly in small counties. Half of them got tanks.
They did, because military surplus.
Yeah, so that's and when you looked at this, and this will be a focus of FBA and
ATF
investigations, at least, are these people in law enforcement, because that becomes very, very messy. And what happens is they're charged and they basically lose their jobs. That's what happens in most cases. You may have, in fact, some, hillbilly counties where the local sheriff will say, "That's my boys, and I'm going to let my boys do whatever my boys want to do." But
Yeah.
but generally speaking, it's not going to be very good for them.
I
What
reckon
was
there'll be a
also
lot of solidarity.
concerning was that there clearly were members of the military there, or at least ex-military, because we know that from
one of them deceased. Yeah.
from one of the deceased who was shot
Ashley
by
Babbitt.
Capitol Guards, and as she tried to kick through a window of the building, I think most of us have seen that footage. In the end, 5 people were dead. One special fuckwit, and we saw him afterwards, cradling weapons and, basically masturbating over firearms. He tased himself in the balls and and then fell off the branch as a result.
He's dead.
Well,
he's probably an all right guy.
It's giving new meaning to so what am I going to say?
Giving new meaning to tasing yourself in the nuts.
Well, no. There's a fetish associated with this. It's a bondage and discipline thing where they have electrical fucking torture. But
it's good that you don't know the word.
That's
reassuring.
It's good that I don't know the word to that. But yes, he's given himself a bit of electrical arousal by just slamming a taser bolt into one of his nuts, and unsurprisingly, died from the response to it.
Well, as the COVID deniers would say, I don't think he died from the tase. I think he died from a pre-existing condition. Basically, being American is the first one. The second one is I imagine his body mass index was not in a good range for cardiovascular health. And
he looked
just
like
generally being a
fuckwit to
fuckwit.
lose a few pounds. Another one fell off the wall, and I think we've seen that, haven't we, Joel? We've seen that. There's a bit.
I'm not sure which one that is.
Yeah,
but that video is beautiful. But I'm not sure if that's the one.
It is kind of amusing where the Super Mario theme plays while this person climbs up a wall, but is not a very good climber and falls about 2 meters. And that may well have been fatal. So a bit. I
hope it wasn't, because I have laughed at that video, and we'll get to memes later. But I have laughed at that video, which makes me feel bad.
It does, yeah. Look, it was. I mean, I burst out laughing when I saw it too. But then, of course, you've got someone who's probably been fairly seriously injured.
The one that made me really feel bad about laughing about was the one that was trampled to death while, ironically, wearing a "Don't tread on me" flag.
That is a terrible irony, right?
I feel bad about that. Yeah, I definitely find that funny. I'm sorry, but it's just funny.
You're a very, very dark man, Joel.
Her story is so sad. Her story of redemption.
I read the backstory. This person had been a substance abuser, an addict, got herself clean over 3 years, or had been clean for 3 years, and then just got sucked in. I mean, this is why these cults are fucking horrible, because someone who's vulnerable like that was preyed upon by QAnon. She was a QAnon believer. I mean, I read some of the posts from her family. I mean, they're in a terrible state. They didn't even want her to go. She said she'd stay out of the way. And all she was carrying a "Don't Step on Me" flag, and she got stepped on, and she died.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly.
Yeah, it is sad. The gag is good.
It tells you how fucking
sad.
evil these pricks are.
Yeah. And how ruthless they are, and distancing themselves from these people as well, which we'll get into later. But I mean, this is the kind of person who's gone there and given their life. And I tell you what, no one gives a fuck. Reason. They care about Ashley Babbitt, the one that got shot.
Look, she's just become a hero of the movement. But in the meantime, a DC Capital officer was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, not as cop-friendly as you'd bloody think. But I guess he was probably one of the few cops who said, hold on, maybe you shouldn't storm the Capitol. And that's just not acceptable behaviour at all.
Well, he basically tried to get in the way of a mob. I mean, we've seen how the mob operated. Some of you must have seen the footage. There was some good freelance footage, actually, from some good journalists who filmed it really at the coalface. People saying, some of these Trumpers going, heads on pikes.
Yeah.
As they
of course meant like Pelosi and Democrats and Schumer and, not the cops. They meant their political enemies.
There was that TikTok video too, as they basically broke down the first barricade up the stairs and then and then into the building. That's when they broke the glass and stormed on through. So there clearly were insufficient numbers of police there or DC
but like,
guards.
where were the aerosols of pepper spray they use on lefty protesters at BLM? Like, you see, like they use those giant cans where it's just en masse pepper spray, and unless it was a windy day, I'm sorry, like, look, where was it?
Absolutely, there are questions that need to be answered about the level of response, and some of it may come down to the funding that was not made to the National Guard. And of course, Trump refused on the first instance, let's never forget this, to call in the National Guard.
And then lied about it in that video.
And lied, straight-faced lied about it on his little concession video, if you want to call it that. This led to delays in the rollout of the National Guard from Maryland, which comes in, and also Virginia, where DC neighbours. And so that response was slow, and when it arrived, it didn't have the resources that it needed. And meanwhile, in the Congressional building, everything's flipped, right? Trump had days earlier, going back to the Georgia runoffs, had basically put it right on his loyal deputy, Mike Pence, that Pence had to basically go and do something deeply constitutional and probably criminal and intervene in the certification of the Electoral College.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
When Pence had actually already explained this to Trump that he couldn't do it, and that was, I think, that's pretty much the last time they spoke.
But the thing with this is, like, Trump had this idea because he's gone in with this electoral fraud shit. What's happened is then 4chan have started up these ridiculous memes and these ridiculous ideas going through things that are similar to Q drops, really just Q influencers making shit up, saying that Pence can do this. It gets back to him through OANN and fucking Newsmax, and Trump is saying, hey, I saw on the news, apparently Pence can give me the election.
Well, there were...
It's a circle of shit.
The mob once inside the Capitol, and Pence was there at the time too. You could see them going, "Where's Pence? Where's Mike Pence? Where's Mike Pence?" And Pence was actually in the building at the time. There was an article in the New York Times that basically indicated that Pence's response was, he's absolutely furious with Trump. As I say, they haven't spoken since. And all sorts of things occurred. You know, Pence's family were threatened. They were basically put in protective custody.
Trump called for him to be executed.
Trump didn't call. Trump didn't say anything. Didn't ring to see how they were. And Pence's response is apparently furious. Now
so he should be. Fuck it, stand up for yourself.
I mean, it's just
Don't be bullied by that fucking swine.
One of the people who dropped off him. But I would say it's sort of arguable, but I think Pence is, in the current state of play, is probably more powerful than Trump at the moment. At least he brings congressional authority with him. And like I say, as long as they've got Trump, and this is another big question, you know, where is he with executive orders for the military? Have they worded up the Joint Chiefs and said, look, you're not to take anything from this guy? And I honestly believe that if nothing formal has been made, I believe that's the way the military would deal with it.
You wouldn't take his phone call.
Yeah,
you just wouldn't.
Something like Trump invoking the Insurrection Act. I just don't think they're going to get that support, and I think in very quiet and discreet ways the military have made it clear that they're not going to listen to that.
They made a pledge to the Constitution, not the president.
Yeah,
that's what they've been saying recently. That's like the line.
That's what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs said.
You told me that.
Yeah, in the post-election, in the immediate post-election period, and that was just their way of saying, you know, forget about it, don't even try.
And that's the deep state at play, unfortunately. I mean, look, I'm skeptical of the deep state because, you know, of course, I'm slightly pilled. But, like, you know, when it comes down to it, like, you know, there is a deep state of unelected officials that do control a lot of this stuff. And we have this idea that the president somehow has a magical lever.
It's called
There's
a bureaucracy.
Other shit going on.
It's called a bureaucracy. It's not called a deep
checks
state.
and balances.
You can call it a deep state if you want it, but it's just called a bureaucracy, and it has.
Well, they get very comfortable in there, and they start making themselves money.
And it has an enforcement element.
Absolutely.
And look, I just think, what he did to Pence was such a, I don't have necessarily any sympathy for Mike Pence, but what he did to him was just an extraordinary betrayal, and it just shows you the extent that Donald Trump will go to, how everyone is dispensable beside him.
Dispensable.
If it came to the
dispensable, sorry, I'll show myself.
Indispensable, get your code. As you go. And
dispensable.
Dispensable and disposable. When push comes to shove, Donna's going to push you out in the plank, and off you go. And if it came down to his kids, he'd do it to his kids. If it came down to his
do it to Eric.
If he had a dog, and of course, people like Donald Trump shouldn't have dogs.
No.
He would push his dog out in the plank too. So it's extraordinary that a lot of people have dropped off him. Right? Yeah. In the Congress, basically, he had, when those votes were votes were taken, the certification votes, I think the most was a 142 vote from the Republicans, 142 in the House, that they wouldn't accept the figures in Pennsylvania, 142 that was, and there were just on 10 in the Senate. So he had 152 in the Congress, Trump, but I would say he'd have less than 100 now. And this is part of my theory anyway, that he'll disappear. He'll disappear because
you kind of have to.
Yeah. Well, it's not just the insurrection and whether it be charged and all this sort of stuff. What's become clear to the Republican Party now is he may guarantee big turnout of GOP vote, of Republican vote, but he is the biggest magnet for Democrat high voter turnout you've ever seen. That is, always his opponents will come out with bigger numbers, and that's the way Donald Trump is perceived now. He's electoral poison. Yeah. And so he can't play in politics anymore. You just can't. I mean, he may be a kingmaker or some bullshit like that, but he can't be in representative politics anymore because he's been found out. And it happened in the midterms in 2018. They managed to hold the Senate. They had a net 2 Senate seat gain, but they lost 41 rep seats, and then of course in 2020 he lost the election on 3 November, and then he lost both senators in Georgia. And there are lots of reasons for that, and Stacey Abrams and so forth from the Democrat Party and getting that vote out. But think about it. This is the Republican Party losing both senators in Georgia after losing Georgia after it being flipped blue. I mean, there's no future for him. So that was where we stood anyway before January 6th. I said on Twitter, basically, this is what's going to happen tomorrow if he loses in Georgia. If he loses both in Georgia, or the Republicans lose both in Georgia, they're just going to hang him out to dry. Yeah. And then he pulls the stunt on the 6th. It just shows you how, I mean, look, his first instincts are fascist ones. That's the first thing it tells you. But it also tells you that his instincts are so terrible, that he makes mistake after mistake after mistake. The stories go that in the West Wing, he was staring at screens of mayhem around the Capitol with a big grin on his face and sort of nudging the people in the room going, how good's this? Yeah. And they're all going, we can't be here. You've got his counsel running around telling all the staff saying, don't say anything because if you do, you might be charged with incitement, please. And everyone's crying and everything. And Trump's just sitting there with a grin on his face saying, how good's this?
Yeah. So he's a basic idiot. That's why. The guy's a fucking moron.
Yeah. So the question is, what happens with the 25th Amendment? Now, we know Pence is not a happy chappy with O'Donnell, but
no,
he'll probably let it go. My understanding is that the word has got to Trump and certainly into Trump's office that you pull any more of this shit and I will back the invocation of the 25th Amendment, which means Trump basically loses his job.
And you've got these people like Elaine Chao who just resigned as the transport minister, cabinet minister, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is there's a side to me which is really annoyed by that, but a side to me that understands it, because honestly, the idea of Pence or anyone else in the cabinet voting for this to happen, it's all on public record. You are going to never hear the fucking end of it for the next 8 years. You will have MAGA nuts knocking on your door, harassing you, causing you grief for so long. A personal cost, a big one, because these people are psychotic cult members.
Absolutely. How quickly did they jump off Pence, who was kind of, after Trump and the Trump family, the golden-haired boy of all these guys, when they dropped off him, in minutes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But they were ready to be fair. Like, I saw all the chatter leading up to this, which basically said, if Pence doesn't do his job and he doesn't activate and he doesn't get the thing, then fuck him.
Well, Trump said...
Lynn Wood's calling for his execution on Parler. They deleted the post, and they're not even meant to.
I saw it. I reposted that one. I reposted that. In fact, that was one from his Twitter account. I posted one from his Twitter account earlier where he had called for the execution of Mike Pence.
Yeah, and it's such a normal thing now.
And so there's also the prospect of impeachment. If you ask me, they're going to run out of time and probably political will from the Republicans, but it's possible. And that would mean that it would go through the House. It will go through the House before the 20th of January when Biden is inaugurated. And the Senate may get to it later, and that would mean, well, the Democrats already have the +1 there, but they're going to need 60 votes to get it up, and they've got 51. So it could happen, and that would be all sort of after the event. Everyone in DC,
that a lot of establishment Republicans want to save their career after this. So,
everyone in DC is just hoping the next 2 weeks goes without another disgrace, another shambles, because
but the phone calls were being made.
Because the Democrats and Pelosi are saying, if you don't invoke the 25th Amendment, then we're going to impeach. So, look, they're not going to leave this guy alone. And
it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other at this point.
Of course, he's indicated he's not going to go to the inauguration. There's story out there that he's booked into playing his golf course in Scotland. And a number of the Scots and Scott.
You were saying Nicola Sturgeon was saying that.
Nicola Sturgeon said, "Please don't come.
Just stay away."
He's going to find. He's going to find that in time to come, he might have to walk naked around Antarctica because no one else will have him, and this is the way it's going to go for Trump. The brand's completely fucked, and it would be. I mean, I'm not saying that you couldn't market it, but poor old Eric's Trump wine. I just don't see great things happening there. But
it's not going to save the empire. And you've got a hotel chain that basically you have a Trump golf course, you've got a Trump hotel. For the next couple of years, you'll have a whole lot of fanatic people going in there, posing with the signs and saying how fucking great it is. But once the MAGA cult dies off and people find a new, false idol, no one's going to go because the MAGA heads aren't going to bother. And let's face it, most of them can't afford it. And then the other half of society are just going to say, I'm not staying there. I'm not touching that place with a fucking pole.
That's right.
And half the money comes from naming rights.
It's going to be really, really interesting to see how the brand of Trump goes going forward. And will there be enough nutters, wealthy enough to... And look, that's a funny thing. Trump actually, when he was watching this, grinning and smiling at the chaos that he pretty much caused, he was also said to be appalled. He would have seen the QAnon, the Q
shaman,
the Q shaman, the QAnon wizard. Basically, he would have looked at him, and apparently he did. He just said, "These people are appalling."
These are not my people. Look how badly dressed they are.
He was appalled at how low rent they were.
That's it. Why are the working class the ones rising up for me? I wanted something better.
Look, if you're going to turn up and cause a revolution in the Capitol, can you wear a suit, a nice tie?
Well, to be fair, some of them were wearing their best survival gear. They really, went to tacticalgear.com and, got a good shipment.
I saw
but there was a lot of slapdash stuff, a lot of hoodies, oversized hoodies.
Yeah, it's disappointing, really, wasn't it? I did see a few blokes that just sort of staggered off the couch. I think you might have been ripping into a few skull bongs before they hit the Capitol. But
might be part of their legal defence. I'm sorry, sir. I'd done some bongs before I came, and it all seemed like a good idea at the time. If you'd smoked enough bongs, you would never have turned up.
There were quite a few. I reckon there have probably been about 25 arrests. That's just my guess on it. And, we know that the Q Shaman's been arrested and charged. He put on a nice old soft sit sort of argument with the police, but he's been charged anyway. And interesting to see. I don't know that did he get bail? I'm not quite sure.
I don't actually know. Like a lot of these things are,
what we're seeing is the vandals being swept up now. And the really serious guys,
the real brazen ones who stole Pelosi's laptop, who took letters from her office, all that sort of stuff.
The guys who left pipe bombs around DC. Do they know
who they are?
The Republican National Congress and the Democrat National Congress, their offices. So they were left around there, and these people are going to be, and quite a lot more. So I reckon 25 arrests. We will see hundreds more, and these will be violent arrests. These are
there will be blood.
Yeah, blokes in the ninja outfits and light machine guns, basically just bursting through your window and saying, "If you move, we'll kill you." And that's what's going to happen to quite a lot of these guys. And also, I think if we move forward beyond the inauguration, I mean, what we can say about the extreme right is it's been, investigations into it by FBI, ATF, etc., have been under-resourced because Trump has always maintained that it never listened to the idea that they should receive extra funding. So in a Biden administration, that will change. Yeah. You are going to hear a lot of loud bangs from the hard right in the United States for the next couple of years. That's my tip.
And one of the things with that is that, I think we've all been wondering what's next. What's the next chapter? How's this going to go? What have we got in store for us? There's all that, meme thinking of, 2021 is going to suck worse than 2020. But deplatforming works. It really does. Look, we're seeing it on a mass scale.
Yeah, we're seeing the bullhorn switched off. And no bigger bullhorn than Donald Trump's Twitter account. They gave him a suspension, a 12-hour suspension. That was on the day of the insurrection, and he came out and shit posted a couple more times, and they said, "That's it, champion. See you later."
Yep. I love how he had about a 12-minute attention span on that. You could wait 12 hours and you could get your toys back, but no, you had to break into the Toys R Us and steal the Laser Challenge set. What were you thinking?
He's gone for the POTUS account, so he's gone. And there's a very lovely meme. I don't know if you remember the instance where the kid Trump paid the kid money to mow the lawns on the White House. I mean, I'm not sure if it was all of them, but it was just a kid about 12 or 13. And there's a famous photo of Trump just sort of watching him while his kid mowed. And the meme this time was the Donald asking the kid, he goes, "Can I borrow your Twitter account?"
Yeah, perfect. Because I love the idea of the POTUS account getting activated and him going, "Oh, what's the password? Ah, fuck! No, it's asking for authentication."
Followers, but he wasn't the only one.
Whose mobile phone ends in 085?
Oh, look, I'm absolutely hating that. You're seeing a lot of people, shall we say, right-wing commentary, people saying how concerned they are. That Donald Trump has been, silenced and all this sort of stuff.
Silenced, yes.
Yeah, he's literally a phone call away from a worldwide media appearance.
There is a whole room that he has for going and addressing the press. An entire fucking room.
This is right. So we are not talking about a man being silenced. We are saying, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., are saying about Donald Trump. Basically, you have breached our terms of service on numerous occasions, and you can't be published here. I've said this before. You do not have a right to be published. No one in this world does.
Yeah.
And we found out a few more after the Donald. He'd be just screaming at the walls, wouldn't he? He'd be in a bad way. And apparently, meltdown stuff when he realised his account had been taken away altogether, suspended indefinitely. But there are others.
Lost his little stress ball, he can't. He's got no outlet anymore.
Now
he's just got to yell at poor underpaid bloody staffers.
Yeah, and we'll get to them in a minute too. But it was one of them at least who looks to be in a very bad way. But there are others who got the flick as well. It was kind of night of the long keyboards really. L. Lynn Wood got the arse from Twitter.
Yep.
Ron Watkins got the arse from Facebook as well. Yeah, General Mike Flynn, who really did look like he was going to go nuts. And not that he's got any command over military, over US military.
General in name only. It's like the Honourable Bronwyn Bishop.
Scary son of a bitch, because he's wanted to he urged Trump to implement the Insurrection Act and call martial law and all this kind of crazy stuff.
If there's someone who's got the ear of the president who's cooked as fuck, it's fucking Mike Flynn.
Sidney Powell, who's, as we said, has got the $1.3 billion Dominion suit hanging.
She's increasingly
over her
irrelevant,
head.
But it's good that she's gone because she wasn't fucking helping anyone.
She might be grinning to some of her colleagues about it. I think it's a bit of a joke, but that's kind of a walk-up start. They would have assessed her assets and thought, okay, I mean, Sydney, we don't know how detached from reality you are, but please understand us when we say go home, have a good look around at all your possessions, including that home, and know in your heart that it will belong to us.
They are going elsewhere. Yeah. She's going to do a Karen Brewer and move to New Zealand or some shit.
And she, of course, is one of many who can't whinge about it on Twitter.
No,
anymore.
You brought this upon yourself.
Lots of cute people, Joel. Lots of cute people.
Praying Medic is gone, which he's always danced around the idea of even having a Twitter profile, sort of deactivating it strategically to try and avoid these sort of culls. But this time, not so good, and I believe that he went on Twitter and Facebook, but either way, he is... I almost miss him, because let's face it, Praying Medic is like his bread and butter for the Q movement, and without him, it's like, there's a part of me that's gone. A part of me that also that is toxic and evil, and runs a cult. So, actually, no, fuck you, see you later, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah, look, I actually think social media's got it right in that this is a very threatening period. The period before the inauguration of Biden is a particularly dangerous period, particularly for the United States. And
you can't have people inciting this sort of shit.
And I think they've got the more dangerous ones out, and sort of deplatform, and no more dangerous one than Donald Trump.
And this is a short list. There
are
many more scalps.
There are many more.
I'm not going to research them. I can't be bothered. There's such a long list.
They are bleating because they understand what a blow it is.
Totally. And Parler's like, come over here. And they're like, mate, on Parler, I have 12,000. I had 1.2 million. You are small fries. But you are, unfortunately, these days, it's that thing of getting fired from a good job and then your CV, no one cares.
It's not as if these people have been silenced. I mean,
working
Powell, Flynn, Watkins, Wood, Donald Trump, basically any one of those people could ring up and give interviews to media, organise press conferences, where media can attend. I mean, it's not being silenced. They've just been deplatformed so they can have minimal influence.
And not instant influence. This is the thing. Like when Trump has a press conference,
a very good point. That's right.
Sends McEnany out. He has to get her to say things, which is another filter on him. But when he wants to go and address the media, he can. But they can also choose not to publish the insane shit, and it will take a day before it hits the media. Okay, some things are live, but for the most part, they're not going to give him an unfiltered platform to say things that are incendiary, which will make the world, except for OANN.
Exactly,
and that's the thing. I would be very surprised if he didn't start rallying them up and say, I want to do an interview. And
of course, some of our friends in the right wing commentariat immediately go, and some of our right wing politicians in this country immediately go to the position of free speech, and it is really not a free speech.
Whether
it's Craig Kelly or whatever dropkick
George
politician.
Christensen.
Talk about their concerns, their furrowed brows about all of this stuff.
Just repeating nonsense memes they found on the internet because they're a part of toxic swamps.
No one has a right to be published in this world, and any single one of them some of the columnists, for example. Okay, put a few of your columns together and go down to your local publishing house and see how you get on. I mean,
Absolutely. Would your parents be upset if you said that at the dinner table?
Like, meanwhile, Joel, one of the Trumpsters' most loyal people, Kylie McEnany, the little Barbie.
Yeah.
And when I think of Kylie, I think of her as almost part of the Trump family, and then I think about the Trump family, and it's going to be a hot old time there. I mean, Ivanka, well, there she was, grifting her way on Parler there, asking for look, we want to run our own Trump channel. And
Trump media.
Yeah, Trump channel. She actually used the word channel. And if you guys just chip in $15, always, if all of you just send in $15, it'll mean that we've got all the money. This is a woman who made $80 million reportedly last year.
Yeah.
By legitimate means or not, I can't be sure, but she made $80 million. And there she is grifting her way through people who are, most of them would be willing to pay the $15, but just grifting their way to people who can afford it a hell of a lot less. That's what makes her a piece of trash.
That is what makes it disgusting. And look, this is their MO. Like, Jared Kushner is a fucking slumlord that buys rent-controlled apartments and then turns them into, living hell for the tenants. Yeah. And then when the tenants leave, the rent control leaves with them, and he does retail rent.
Puts a coat of paint on them and retail rents them. That's right. Yeah. So
these are the people we're dealing with.
These are terrible people. And of course, we'll get to Eric a little bit later. In fact, very soon. Yes. I know everyone's looking forward to that. But it's going to be a very, very difficult time for Ivanka. I read one of those, sort of horribly bitchy things that you read in Vanity Fair about how she's going to be accepted on the Upper East Side of New York, the real old moneyed side of New York. And there was a sense there for a while before the Capitol was stormed that she'd be sort of tolerated and people would be at least vaguely pleasant towards her until she sort of got out of earshot. But now it's kind of like, don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. You are toxic. You and your husband are toxic. So I don't know what happens to them. I think they're going to struggle. And I know that the one who's really going to struggle is Barron Trump, the ghostly, tall member of the Trump family. He may have to change his name and not just his surname. He may have to change the whole lot. Barron Trump. He can't just be, hi, I'm Barron Drumpf when he goes to college. Everyone's going to know, right? So he's got to change both. Out. In fact, he might have to do the whole Breaking Bad, going to have to change your ID, in a year or two. Year or two, he'll be running a Cinnabon. That's my tip for poor old Barron, who's really hasn't done very much wrong, except probably just live off someone else's money a fair bit.
Just sort of exist.
And
really,
Donnie, oh God, Donnie, he's a very strange man. The more I look at him, he was basically sent on his holidays. I mean, Trump going, get the boy away from my side. So he'd go to Ivana's relatives in Czechoslovakia, and the only thing they sort of knew what to do with him was basically, well, I'll take you out hunting, and so he loves hunting, and he's been sort of raised probably the only good memories he has in life. I mean, it was either that or with being with his dad. And so he calls himself an outdoorsman, and the really weird thing is he hates anybody who isn't a hunter, and also it's very, very strange human being.
That's weird.
And look, there's no one stranger out of that whole fucking Addams family disgrace than Kimberly Guilfoyle, Donnie's current squeeze. I mean, I looked up skank in the Oxford English Dictionary, and they had a photo of her there.
It's always good they're still doing that. It sounds like something from The Simpsons. The thing with the Trump family, and this is one of the things that I find interesting, is that Trump being God Emperor is one thing, but we have seen over the last few days how easily these guys throw their own under the bus.
Oh, Trump basically
bullshit artists, traitors, nonsense. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
There's no fucking loyalty in these ranks.
None whatsoever.
None. Amazing. It's bizarre.
Like Eric hasn't tweeted, Donnie hasn't tweeted, and while while Ivanka's been active on Parler, no tweets from her either. So
You want to be pretty quiet right now.
They are going really quiet, and please, after January 20, if they hear a knock on the door, they're going to jump in their seats. Put it that way.
Absolutely, with a pizza, but they'll be
could
terrified.
be the pizza guy, but
pizza guy's probably got a submachine gun.
They're going to be a bit toey when that happens.
And look, it's one of those things. I'm really curious to see how this plays out because, like, this really surprised me. The idea that the people who stormed the Capitol, when everything was on the nose and people didn't like the optics of having all these nutcases storming the Capitol and basically subverting democracy, they started saying it was all Antifa, Black Lives Matter protesters who were infiltrating the ranks. What a complete bunch of shit.
It happened really quickly too, and there were a number of congressmen, a number of Republican Trumpers.
Actual congressmen.
Who got up and spoke in the House saying that it was actually Antifa, tweeted up that it was Antifa.
Absolutely.
No proof whatsoever. In fact,
they used that picture from the Philly Antifa site with those two guys.
Yeah.
When you look at the website, which like it even tells you the website to go to fact check it.
These are Nazis.
They're Nazis. And it's a website saying, by the way, these guys are Nazis. Probably shouldn't be mates with them. And they said there was like a hammer and sickle on the guy's hand. It was a fucking, and this is typical like Nazi nerd shit. It was a fucking thing from a video game named Dishonored called the Outsider's Mark. Because conservatives do not know what a hammer and sickle even looks like. These people are fucking cranks.
Unbelievable. Saw that too. So and of course, when they saw the horned QAnon shaman, they decided he was Antifa. Look at the style of this bloke, and I'm sure the Trumps might take a look at it and go, please be Antifa. But he actually said, no, don't you dare call me Antifa.
Well, he was actually. The thing is that he was actually really sad. What he said to Lynn Wood, who was calling him out, and he loves Lynn Wood.
Right.
He literally said, Mr. Wood, I am not Antifa or BLM. I am a QAnon and digital soldier. My name is Jake, and I marched with the police and fought against BLM and Antifa in Phoenix. Look up OAN's coverage of July 4th's rally in Phoenix Capitol. I was staging against the BLM mob, outnumbered but unfazed. Look it up, Mr. Wood.
And
I mean, it's the saddest fucking tweet.
The QAnon shaman had been turning up at Trump rallies throughout Arizona as well. So there was just this vast amount of footage. So the whole Antifa story, it was still being put about, by the way, a couple of days afterwards. Yeah, it sort of still is, but it's just not credible. But
it's embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, Fox News ran with it, or certain programs on Fox News went with it, and it was just unbelievably stupid.
It's just bullshit. You should look up his car. Like, obviously, it's a podcast, so we can't show you, but the Q Shaman's car, Travis View posted it on Twitter. It's really funny. It's like this old Hyundai, and it's got all this shit about like saving the children and all this sort of stuff on the wall, like all in like whiteout. It's fucking embarrassing. But one of the things that was interesting is the crowd were apparently chanting ACAF, which is all cops are friends. It's a twist on the whole ACAB, ACAB, which is all cops are bastards, which is the kind of shit that BLM guys and the extreme left tend to pull out. And they fucking do. They love that term. But this is actually, like, this is another thing the Simpsons totally saw coming. So if you remember back when Montgomery Burns was being booed and he was reassured by Smithers that it wasn't booing, they were in fact saying boo earns. It's not a cab, it's a calf, I mean, come on, you can't write this shit. But yeah, the Simpsons just seem to pick this stuff. Just see
look, it's incredible. Actually, the prophecy of the Simpsons, it's just extraordinary. We had some memes. We had some fantastic memes, Joel.
We did. We had some memes. We actually had an incorrect Simpsons meme, which was interesting. So the Simpsons pick it so well that even people are starting to put fucking like the Q Shaman in Simpsons form into a meme. And it's like, no, that didn't happen. Draw the line.
That.
Do not ruin the credibility of the Simpsons.
That's the memes do not work that way. But look, my favourite of the whole week was Elizabeth from Knoxville, who got to the Congress building, good. Sort of broken glass under her feet, and got as far as that until someone just came and maced her down.
Yeah, to her great surprise.
There she was being supported by her boyfriend, and then someone, God love him, has put her in an Animaniac sketch. Joel, it's just very, very funny. I listened to it about 40 times. It just kept me going.
For your pleasure, we will put that in here.
Excellent.
We're totally They pushed me out and paced me.
And you can see why we've listened to that basically on repeat, like crackheads pressing a crack button.
Funny.
Give me crack.
So
Give me crack. Keep on going. There's more variants and things like that. You can find them on YouTube and various social media sites. But like, fuck me, it's the original and best for me. It's just so good. You know, they pushed me out and maced me. Oh, they did too. It was meant to be a revolution.
And then she goes.
Yeah, that
it
last
is very,
bit,
very
really.
funny. There's some tremendous work. What I would recommend our listeners is they follow Donald J. Drumpf, who's a Trump. He's got a mustache, so it's a man pretending to be Donald Trump, but
He's very sneaky.
Under a sort of clandestine circumstance. Got some fantastic links to his site too. So Donald J. Drumpf, listeners, go and check that out. Very, very funny. And we're coming back home, looking back inward as Australians all must, whether it's at ourselves in the mirror or just bending over and having a good look at our own asses to see what's going on there.
Always check the plumbing.
Where's the Australian Prime Minister and all this?
Where's he fucking been for years? Let's face it.
To be honest, he can't be contacted a lot during his holidays. He has been out and about, but he has knocked over. He hasn't gone anywhere near Craig Kelly and George Christensen, who are basically red hat wearers. They are mega boys. I mean, Craig Kelly,
they are.
Jesus Christ, where he was urging one particular drug treatment today as well, and he got notified by Facebook that this was a dodgy post and please be careful. And he actually thought, this is someone impinging on my free speech. It was Facebook saying, you're sailing close to the breeze here, champion.
Yeah.
And
you're
be
full
careful.
Of shit.
And be careful. And he goes, oh, look, no one stopped. No one cut the post. The post is still there. So, this on nonsense that he was being impinged upon by big tech and all this sort of stuff.
And all this stuff fucking works. I mean, his vote went up last election, for Christ's sake. He's a member from Manila, known for basically being a sex pest in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And he just fucking goes nowhere. Craig Kelly might get done on that pre-selection thing, which you talked in the last episode. But honestly, these guys are like fucking Teflon. They say this dumb shit and they have these rubes go, I'll have a slice of that. Like,
Christensen is as safe as you get in the LNP. I mean, they threw a lot of money at that seat. They threw a lot of money at that seat in the 2019 election.
Well, maybe that explains why that fucking grub got so many goddamn votes last election.
Look, there was a lot of the sports and regional funding going up, going to the electoral.
Thanks, Bridge.
Thank you, everyone. And a bit of a swing towards him as a result. But look, it does beg the question. I mean, ScoMo, you've seen all of this. You've seen all this happening in the United States. Are you going to allow these sorts of QAnon enablers, anti-vax characters? Are we going to go with this pro-Trump electoral fraud nonsense?
And what's their influence? What's their influence over the cabinet?
Craig Kelly and George Christensen are entitled to say whatever they want to say. Morrison's right about that, but they're also representing the Liberal Party in the federal parliament, and that needs to be that. I mean, I'm sure ScoMo just looks at this and goes, well, even if I say anything, they're not going to do anything about it. So,
well, you know what? If they want to talk freely amongst themselves, run as an independent.
Yeah, that's fine.
Be my fucking guest. Exercise democracy.
Look, you get no argument.
Neither of them get much exercise, to be fair, but now's their time to start.
Oh, okay. Yeah, basically, just some of the stuff that's appearing on Craig Kelly's Facebook is nutty. I mean, dangerously nutty in that he's advocating pharmaceuticals for the treatment of COVID. One over another.
Don't do that,
Craig.
Just don't do it.
We've laughed at you before. You're at your best when you're selling a fucking Chippendale. Yeah, that's about your limit, pal.
I will have a strong drink when he resigns from Parliament, whether it be by, choice or by force.
Well, on the basis of that alone, it's dangerous. Just, someone without due qualifications and experience in the business of handing out medications or recommending medications to some people, it might be completely dangerous.
And you've got to think this fuckwit's holding back and testing the waters to see what he can get away with. And apparently quite a lot.
There seems to be that every day.
Is Daddy ScoMo's not coming after him?
Oh God! Gee, I thought that post was outrageous, but I got away with it.
Let's do the next one.
I'll go again tomorrow.
Yeah,
so that's where we were. Yeah.
It's bloody ridiculous. But I think that this. I think if we were to have the Capitol Hill come to Australia under the guise of a cult led by Craig Kelly and George Christensen, it would take a very different form and it would make a very good TV show.
Well, we did have the trade union movement dirty up at the Parliament House, 1998, I'm going to say, and I remember the secretary of the ACTU there, Jenny George, who went on to become a Labor politician, just bursting into tears. I mean, it was just, it's a terrible look. Attacking your own parliaments. Yeah. It means something's gone very seriously wrong in the society. Now, that was a sort of one-off in Australia, but
America's
we could
fucked.
all see it coming. That was the thing. You and I, and not just you and I, because we sort of follow these things pretty closely.
Watching fucking Parler, yeah.
You could see this thing was going to happen and it was going to blow up. I mean, what I said on the evening or our Tuesday night, the evening before, was that now that Trump had lost Georgia, that he was dead. It was doomed, and the following day would just be a piece of cheap theatre. Well, I understated that because it was extremely dangerous. And
I genuinely didn't think this was coming.
5 people were killed.
I thought basically it was going to be July 6, July 6, July 6, and because of the cold, because of the inevitable fear of most of these idiots realizing COVID actually exists, and the fact that it's not as fun because you can't carry guns, I thought a lot of people were going to stay at home, but fuck me, they mobilized. They really bought the fucking pill, and they went for it. I'm almost impressed.
There's going to be some reaction from law enforcement, but this is a long way from over, and one suspects it's not going to get better until at least Inauguration Day, the 20th.
Yeah, well, I'm not in the business of predictions. I find I usually get them wrong, so I'm just going to sit around and watch, and as Pete Evans would say, I'm going to have a bunch of popcorn. Well, that's enough of that. There's only so long we can dwell on the bad news of the end of American empire as we know it, and we need to look to our favourite son, like one of them. Oh, he's in the running at least. It's Eric Trump! He's like...
A bastard on
Father's Day.
I want to start out the segment this week with an apology. Eric, if you're out there listening, I am sorry I forgot your birthday, but I'm sure you'll agree I wasn't the only one. And you can't talk, Joel, because you forgot Eric's birthday too.
Yeah, sorry, Eric. Sorry, everyone.
Listeners, we all just forgot about Eric's birthday, and I'm sorry about that, but at least I didn't incite an insurrection just so I didn't have to acknowledge it. Eric Trump is a good-looking boy. He turned 37 on Tuesday. He doesn't look a day over 54, but the last time I saw him. But Eric, on his birthday, had his dad stand up in front of a bloody lot of people, telling them all that he loved every single one of them, while he didn't give Eric much more than an awkward pat in the head for his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric, if you're listening, I wasn't the one who pretended he could only speak German when you turned 30. You remember that? Remember? Ich esse einen Eimer KFC beschäftigt. If my high school German is any good, it means I'm busy eating. Fuck off. Give the boy a 2-week pass to Disney World. Anything, just get him the fuck away from me. Now, the Donald always signs a birthday card for Eric, which Eric knows he can sell on eBay for a couple of $100, even now. Although he'd better get cracking if he wants absolute top dollar. And Jesus, Eric, we don't want to even try and lift the scab off your 21st birthday. Still get the shutters. It's all very sad for Eric. And the even sadder thing is it's going to get much, much sadder for Eric, who was a good-looking boy and loves his dad. Love you, Dad! Very disturbing news about Eric, Joel. Quite unsettling, really. I just hope he's going to be okay. Now, John, surely, I ask you, in this tumultuous week in DC, surely someone like Pete Evans sat back and took a few days off. There was so much happening that he had to ponder it, digest it, distill it, a time for some quiet reflection from Pete Evans, who surely had a quiet week this week.
No, Jack. No, it's been a huge week for Pete Evans.
Another one.
It's like you've never even heard of the guy. He's been waiting for January 6th for ages, as he firmly believed that Pence was going to activate and put his boy Trump back in the wing and then arrest everyone he disagrees with. Now, this, of course, did not happen. It did not happen in a big and dramatic kind of not happening way. What did happen is that a bunch of lunatics stormed Capitol Hill, took a bunch of selfies, went on the lam while the adults did the completely normal duty of certifying the election in another room. Now, Pete hasn't given up hope quite yet. And while it's uncertain as to whether he's had a bit of a bet on the result, we can be certain that his delusions are going to take a lot more than a joint sitting to snap him out of it. While Trump has released what is generally considered to be a concession speech, old Pete thinks he's faking it. Everything he doesn't like is a big, deep fake. Oh, yeah, it's a crisis actor. Oh, wow. He's still on Instagram, sadly, so we all need to hear his bullshit still. Look, I will still go deep on Pete, but I am keen for him to get deplatformed because it's good for the fucking world. But they are dragging their heels with this banhammer, which is bizarre considering how decisive Twitter and Facebook have been recently. Absolutely clearing house over the past week. Some really random accounts. Travis View's alt account got taken down. I mean, come on. So
Pete, come on.
Obviously, Pete had a word about the insurrection, and his comments were just a giant word salad of woo bullshit. Like, the usual crap about love and peace, and then, mild hints towards warfare. Oh, peace, love, and warfare, bro. Just popcorn. Fucking asshole. But his Telegram tells a really true story. It's so much more pilled because he's got these usual shit memes, but he's also pushing the idea very, very Q-pilled that the storm is coming and the arrests are going to happen. We're not done yet. This fuckhead must go through so much of that popcorn he keeps talking about because it's all this shit about this biblical event where Trump is president, everyone he doesn't like is arrested, and it is nothing new. But what I love about this is that Pete cannot accept reality and is still convinced Trump will win. Now, it's not crazy to think that maybe he's gone quiet because at this point, saying the same shit is fucking embarrassing. So we're in for one of the best falls from grace soon when he has to just accept that it's all complete bullshit. But let's face it, this is not our Pete. Our Pete will make up some shit story about how it all went to plan, but it didn't, it hasn't, and it won't. So Pete, just a quiet word. You're a fuck up and a loser. Your predictions are shit. Stop pretending you know what's going on because you fucking don't. Just go back to salmon salad because it is at least a little bit more predictable.
Yes, I have to wonder whether Pete has had a bit of a lash and might be quietly and anonymously sort of posting on the Betfair fraud, Betfair Trump punters fraud exposed account. I'd like to think he was. And he's still in there with a chance of maybe picking up a lazy 90 grand.
Yeah, well, he might fucking need it.
Now, you have been listening to the Conditional Release program with your host, Jack the Insider and Joel Hill. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed our bullshit, throw us a 5-star review on your podcast app.
Jack can be found on Twitter on @JackTheInsider and Joel on @CrunchyMoses with a K. We've set up a Facebook page, which you can find fairly easily.
And finally, all feedbacks, tips, and death threats should be sent to the Conditional Release program @gmail.com. We would love to hear from you, even if it's simply to tell us that Dominion Voting Systems plans to take us to court for $1.3 billion. It's about time, quite frankly. All the cool kids are getting flashy subpoenas. We want a piece of it.
Send us a letter.
Thanks, listeners. Catch you next week.
Thanks, guys. And thanks to friend of the podcast, Phil Whitehead, for some of those spicy Eric memes. Keep them coming, mate. You're a good lad. Cheers,
Excellent
guys.
work,
See you later.
Phil. See ya.
See ya.